So here's another tragic incident here. Uh, if you listen to the mayor and you listen to the police in New York City, you get the impression that this is the safest city. That's what they keep saying. That the suburbs are safe. Um, Maybe about 3 weeks ago, a woman was pushed at the Times Square station by a mentally ill woman, and she broke her nose, broke bones in her face, and then this past Saturday here, which was the 15th, a woman was killed by another person, a mentally ill person, who apparently was locked up, maybe a psychiatric place, and he was let out. From what I saw in the news yesterday, his sister is saying he should have never been let out. Okay, so here it is. Woman killed after being pushed onto NYC subway tracks, grew up in Fremont. Now, since my channel deals with travel, if you travel into New York City and you're reading this, beware when you go down in the subway. The police ain't gonna tell you that, the mayor ain't not gonna tell you that, but I'm gonna tell you. You have to watch your back, and you don't stand near the platform, because there are mentally ill people down there. A woman killed in a New York City subway attack this past weekend grew up in Fremont and attended high school there, according to her former classmates. Okay. Police stand guard inside the Port Authority. No, that's not where it is. It happened in Times Square. Michelle Alyssa Go, a 40-year-old New York City resident, was killed Saturday morning after being pushed onto the subway tracks at about 9:30 a.m. at the 42nd Street Times Square station, according to New York City Police Department Commissioner Keechen Sewell in a news conference. A man pushed Go onto the southbound Q train tracks, Sewell said. Police arrived to discover Go under the train with severe trauma to her body, where she was later pronounced dead by medical personnel upon arrival. Investigators said she was standing on the train platform and was suddenly pushed onto the tracks. The incident was unprovoked, and police said they don't believe Go had any prior interaction with the man. Well, no, you don't have to, because the other woman who was pushed, but she happened to be alive, the woman who pushed her was sitting on the bench. You see? And as soon as the train came in, she jumped up and she pushed the woman. So you don't need to have any prior interaction. The police, they usually look to see, like, if there's a motive, like maybe there was an argument that people. No, that's not the case here at all. These are mentally disturbed people who don't belong in the subway. And unfortunately, the city of New York lets these people go to roam free on the rest of society. The man fled the scene, so he knew he did something wrong, but later turned himself in, according to authorities. He was identified as 61-year-old Simon Marshall and charged with murder, police said. A woman lost her life due to a senseless act of violence, and when you look at this incident, it really highlights why the commissioner and I rolled out a very significant plan of dealing with one, crime in our system, but also the mental health crisis that we are facing, said NYC Mayor Eric Adams at the conference. Go's family issued a statement late Monday, thanking mourners for their condolences and asking for privacy. We are in a state of shock and grieving the loss of our daughter, sister, and friend. The statement read in part: "We hope Michelle will be remembered for how she lived and not just how she died. She was a beautiful, brilliant, kind, and intelligent woman who loved her family and friends, loved to travel the world and to help others. Go grew up in Fremont and graduated from American High School in 1998, according to two former classmates. Both declined to talk, one cited in the family's request for privacy. She was my high school classmate and always a source of light," Rui Ma said in a tweet. Just 40 years old, taken way too soon. Gary Tan tweeted in response to Ma: "Michelle was my high school classmate growing up in Fremont. I'm Fremont too. I'm speechless." It's right there. Okay. And there's Michelle Alyssa Gold. She's an Asian woman. By the way, according to the police here in New York City, they say it's not a hate crime. They don't they don't consider it a hate crime. Why? Because she was wearing a hoodie and he pushed her from behind, so he couldn't know that she was Asian. So this is what I'm reporting here. This is what was said in the news yesterday. That it's not considered a hate crime, but at least it's murder, right? It may not be a hate crime, but it's murder. And the man who pushed her, obviously, the guy is homeless. He lives in New York City. I don't know whether he lives in a shelter or not. And he has no place to go. He probably needs medicine that he doesn't get. So now he's going to be locked up. And you know what? The city is going to provide him with medicine and shelter and meals 3 times a day. And then, well, because this is a felony crime, he's going to go to state prison eventually. So he probably may be doing, I don't know, maybe 25 years to life for that. And he's going to get psychiatric medicine. So isn't that sad that the only way this mentally ill person can get help is to murder somebody on the subway? That's really a sad commentary. This lady liked to travel. She's like me. I traveled around the world. I traveled to different places. You know, and to see somebody like that, their life taken away, especially in New York, this didn't happen in some other country to say, well, she was in, I don't know, maybe Egypt or Thailand or someplace like that. No, it happened right here where she lives, which is unfortunate, you know. So Richard Konda, Executive Director of Asian Law Alliance, said he attended Santa Clara University Law School with Gold's father, Justin, and met him in the 1970s. Konda said Justin was one of the founders of ALA, worked there for a period of time, and served on the board of directors. Konda also knows Gold's mother, Marjorie, and said he last saw the couple around 4 or 5 years ago at the ALA fundraising event. I was just shocked and disturbed, emotional, Konda said. Instances of violence, they all kind of get to you, but when it's somebody you actually know, it's even more disturbing, and it's hard to understand why they're happening. Konda said Go and her brother grew up in Fremont, but it's been a long time since he last saw her. I just remember she was a nice young woman, Konda said. Mohari Klevziji said in a Facebook post that he attended the University of California, Los Angeles with Go and had known her since their freshman year. Go receive her MBA from New York University's Stern School of Business, and most recently worked at Deloitte. According to her LinkedIn profile, we lived on the same floor at Dijkstra Hall. As we all know, it is not easy to stay in touch with friends for over 20 years, but somehow, some way, Michelle and I found a way to stay in touch, no matter how busy we got. CG wrote in the post on Monday, I am thankful that we crossed paths and became great friends. He continued, Michelle, you will not be forgotten. That's very sad. And let me just say here, years ago, people like when you down in the subway, people had a habit of like looking down, standing near the edge of the platform, looking to see when the train is coming. Now, with modern technology, they got the digital billboards and they show like when the trains are coming. You see, so you don't have to do that anymore. So my advice is, especially if you're in Manhattan, because Manhattan is where these mentally ill people seem to congregate. Manhattan has all the bright lights and everything, and it's like, like how flies are attracted to bright lights. You put on the light, and you see all these flies coming toward the light. Well, that's how mentally ill are, Manhattan. So Manhattan is you have to be very wary. There was a Filipino lady who got killed in Manhattan. She was pushed by a mentally ill woman in the subway. Yeah, some years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. She was pushed from behind. Yeah, right under the tracks as the train was coming in. So these people are all over, and the city of New York knows that the mentally ill, they're down in the subway system, and they just looking to like push somebody, because when they push somebody, they know that they're gonna be locked up, and they don't care about their life really. They don't care about freedom or stuff like that. They just looking for a place that they're gonna have food. They're gonna have meals every day, 3 meals a day, a place to sleep, and that's what a prison gives you. So people have to be very careful. Whether you live here or whether you visiting, when you're down in the subway, stay away from the edges. Stay away from the edges and check your surroundings. You might see somebody there near you who look like they're not in the right frame of mind. Try to at least stay in the middle of the platform. So if they do push you, if you hit the ground, at least you'll be in the ground and you don't go flying under the tracks. Because this is really ridiculous. This happens like every year. You see people being pushed. Yeah. And the mayor, the police, they all tell you, wow, this is a safe city, and they quote statistics or what have you and tell you crime is down. Don't believe what they say. It's not true. I live here and I know. And I see what goes on. And I'm just warning people, if you're a traveler and you come into New York, be very careful when you're in the subway, because the subway is infested with mentally ill people, and they will have no problem pushing you down to kill you. Yeah. And then the city is going to quote about their low crime statistics or what have you. Don't believe any of that. Your mission is, when you get down in the subway, to get out alive. There should be a sign there that tells people, he or she who enters You may not make it out, but the city is not going to do that. But I will. If 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 you enter the subway, you may not get out. You see, you may not get out. And if you can walk to certain places, that's even healthier. Do some walking if you can, instead of taking the subway. That's even better than going down in there, because once you go down in there, it's a gamble, and you don't want to gamble with your life.